Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin. Been thinking about that today, and I've been playing it as well quite a bit. Now, I got into proper music in 1974, really. I was into Slade and T-Rex and the suite of proper music. It was about 1972, 73. But it was when the big kids at school started telling me about Led Zeppelin and Purple and Sabbath and all these progressive bands. Even Rory Gallagher was classed as progressive. That I felt I should explore and enlarge my musical horizons. And I've told the story about how I discovered Deep Purple and Sabbath, but Zeppelin were a kind of enigma to me. Everybody was mad on Zeppelin, but by the time you get around to 1974, which is the year I saw Deep Purple on the Burn tour, I was 15. They'd already done Led Zepp 1, Led Zepp 2, Led Zepp 3, Led Zepp 4, and even Hazard of the Holy. So I felt like I didn't feel as connected, if you know what I mean. It's weird, really, because obviously in 1975 Physical Graffiti arrived, and I saw Hazard of the Holy as being like an older album. 2 years. That's what it was like then. A year was like 10 years as it is today. So I had Led Zepp 2 and Led Zepp 4. But there were tracks on Led Zepp 2 I didn't play very often, like Moby Dick, and on Led Zepp 4, the first two tracks on side 2 I used to skip, and I didn't really like Hazard of the Holy. But in 1975, the summer of 75, I was about to do all my exams from school. I was going to leave school in July 1975. I was going to become a grown-up. I was leaving school, and Led Zeppelin were releasing a double album called Physical Graffiti. And everyone was talking about it. And I remember it was a radio program called Heavy Pressure in Birmingham. I think it was BMRB, I don't know. Tell me what it was. But I remember I had to go to bed early at this time because of my exams. And I used to listen to the radio, a little tiny radio under my pillow. And they said they were going to play 2 Led Zeppelin songs. And they played Custard Pie and The Rover. And both of them obviously had riffs, and they were rock songs, and I thought, wow. And the guy said he'd heard it all, and it was like a cross between Led Zepp 2 and Led Zepp 4, and I was excited about it. I love these tracks. And then I think John Peel played Kashmir the next day or during the same week, and that was almost a spiritual effect on me. And I also for the first time understood John Bonham on the drums, and the power of Robert Plant's voice, and the way he used it like an extra instrument, and the riff on Kashmir. I was sold on it. I really, really was. And I had the album. I think I borrowed. That's right. I borrowed it. I didn't get it until Christmas that year, actually. But I borrowed it off a neighbour. He was a dad, and he liked rock music. It was really strange, and he lent it me, and I played it. I couldn't tape it then at all. I had a cassette player, but I couldn't tape anything. And I played it, and In My Time of Dying was the last track on side 1, and I absolutely loved that as well. And side 2, Trampled Underfoot, was played like rock discos once I left school, but I didn't really like that song. But Kashmir, now side 3, which was all the acoustic stuff was, which I wasn't really into that much at the time, but it did have that song, In the Light, which has a fantastic riff. You know, the way the vocals are sung. And side 4, all the shorter songs. I used to play side 4 a lot, but it was the album cover. It was the first one on Swan Song, which was mysterious in itself. But the album cover and the things that slid in and out, and I played it. I was not allowed to go to London to see them in 75. I'd been to see Deep Purple the year before, but I wasn't allowed with all the exams and everything, so I didn't see Zeppelin. But Physical Graffiti was like a coming-of-age album, and I do understand the power of Zeppelin and that album, because now I've got several versions of it. I've got the original vinyl, I've got the CD, and I've got the remaster and the remaster after that. But the original album, the way it's sequenced, and of course I had no idea at the time that a lot of those songs were recorded quite a long time ago. It was like a collection of stuff left over from other periods. But the Rover, that riff on the Rover, and I do actually prefer it on the recent remaster, that riff and the way it starts and the fade out and everything, I just think that is that is probably my favourite Led Zeppelin song ever, is The Rover. And my second favourite Led Zeppelin song is probably Kashmir from the same album. Even though my favourite Led Zeppelin album is Led Zeppelin 1, there's a video about that and why it is. But I just think, because I can remember it as being I know 1976 had a hotter summer, but I remember leaving school. I remember being a confused teenager, wondering what I was going to do. And I had Physical Graffiti as a guide. I hadn't got enough money to buy a copy myself at that time. You know, Father Christmas was going to get me one later that year. And I was about to start work and, you know, go to factories and be immersed in a world that I didn't like at all. You know, I was one of those kids that hadn't decided what he wanted to do. I hadn't got a clue. It would be about another 6 months before I decided I was going to be a rock star, when I decided I didn't like factories. And so Physical Graffiti was an album that, even if I didn't understand a lot of the words, the music and the emotion and the power and the feelings that came out of the speakers kept me buoyant and kept me going. It really was that important to me. And to try and put this in perspective, everybody in that year of school who was leaving school, the year beneath me, people I knew outside of school had left, the only thing people talked about was Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin and the Earl's Court concerts, if you were lucky enough to go. Led Zeppelin ruled. I remember going to pick up my sister from her school. She lived, she went to a school where Dave Hill from Slade lived just round the corner. And I remember I was sitting outside in my mum's car, and I bought Melody Maker, and there was a big article on Led Zeppelin, and a massive picture of Robert Plant in all his glory, and it said Karen Carpenter wouldn't last 5 minutes with a Led Zeppelin song. And they were just massive. You know, they arrived, and from that point, although they were obviously huge, but to me, you have to remember, I'm 16. You know, I was only 11 in 1970, or 10 when Led Zepp 2 came out, so that was a lifetime ago. But for me, being 16, leaving school, Led Zeppelin were everywhere, and of course, the following year, there was going to be The Song Remains the Same film, and they were just the biggest band in the world. No matter what I thought, there was no doubt that they were absolutely colossal. But, you know, to this day, Kashmir, I used to lock myself away in my bedroom. I was obviously too young to go to pubs and even sneak out and go to them, really. And I would just go upstairs, and I got my little bedside lamp on, and I'd put Kashmir on and my little stereo, which had probably no more power than 5 watts per channel, and just crank it up. And I just felt like it was otherworldly, literally. It was like a vision into a different place completely to what I knew. Also the Wonton song, that was another one, wasn't it? That was like that trio of riff-based songs, Custard Pie, The Rover and the Wonton song. But all of it, you know, down by the seaside, which is where I am, makes a lot more sense to me now. The whole album does. I can't deny that it is the best, and why it comes to the top of so many rock album polls. Although Led Zeppelin 1 is the one I play the most, I cannot ever escape the power and the effect that Physical Graffiti had on my young mind, physically and mentally, everything it did. It really gave me a different outlook on life and the world. So, thank you for this little update from the beach. Thank you to all my patrons, especially Chris, Clive and Yogi, and keep spinning those records. Stay safe, everybody, and I shall see you very, very soon.